Thank you for joining us in the Peace Offering Kitchen. I have Jonathan with me today, and we are going to talk to you about fats. And these are predominantly the fats I use when cooking, and we are here to tell you why. Jonathan, do you want to start by telling us about the difference between saturated fats or...
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start because that's a big reason why we're using these and not other fats or other oils for that matter.
Yeah.
So one important thing to understand is that every fat has a profile. There are saturated, monounsaturated, and polyunsaturated fats that make up this profile. So one of the prime things we're doing is removing polyunsaturated fats, or you can't totally remove them, but you can choose fats that have very low amounts of polyunsaturation, called PUFA, okay? So you may have heard the term seed oil, so we'll talk a little bit about that. This is an oil that's made from a seed, and seeds are where the plant concentrates polyunsaturated fats. So if you are pressing one of these seeds, they're going to have varying amounts of PUFA. So for example, sunflower and safflower oil, those seeds are about 70% PUFA.
And that is what's predominantly in all of the organic foods that you get.
Yes, and so most of the organic packaged foods are using those things. It's just for reference, canola oil is about 30%. I mean, it's significantly different.
Wow.
So, and by the way, chicken fat has about the same amount of PUFA as canola oil.
Interesting.
Okay? I mean, and we're talking a commercial chicken, by the way.
Sure, not vegetarian fed.
Yes, not a pasture-raised or a chicken that you raise here.
Yeah.
And so why that's not good is they have very high amounts of polyunsaturated fat, which is the opposite of a saturated fat. So they're very fragile, they break down easily, they produce a lot of free radicals and create a lot of inflammation in your body when you consume them. So we don't want that. We don't want that going into our cell membranes and then triggering a bunch of inflammation and other sort of bad things that happen as well. So all of these fats here have pretty low PUFA, some more than others, okay? So as an example, the avocado oil and the olive oil have the highest amount of PUFA of this group, and it's representing somewhere in the ballpark of 10 to 15% of the total fat there is polyunsaturated. And conversely, your dairy fat, like ghee and butter, the tallow, the coconut oil, they're about 1 to 2%. So significantly different, but this is still in our sort of window of toleration, okay?
Yeah.
Then the other thing that we're looking at is how much saturated fat is in them, because saturated fats are really good for us, unlike what we're being told or have been told for the last 50 years. And of all of these on the table here, the highest saturated fat comes from coconut oil, and it's about 90%. So you got about 90% saturation, like 1 to 2 polyunsaturation, and the difference being monounsaturation, okay?
So I think, could you maybe tell us why saturated fat is good for us?
Yeah, so, well, there's a couple of reasons, but the primary reason is that saturated fats are highly stable fats, okay? So they're not going to oxidize easily when they're being made. They're not going to be oxidized easily when you're cooking with them.
And what does oxidize mean?
Basically break down.
Okay.
And when they break down inside the body, that creates a lot of inflammation.
Okay.
But so you want to skew towards saturated fats, and the highest on this table, so I talked about coconut, but ghee, butter, so dairy fats are about 65%, and tallow is about 50%.
Okay.
So then you have monounsaturated fats, which are kind of considered neutral. So this is about 50% roughly, 48% we'll call it, the tallow, about 48% mono.
Okay.
So 50% saturated, 48% monounsaturated, 1 to 2%, depending on if it's grass-fed or not.
Okay.
This is about 65% saturated and about, so what would that be? I'm doing math in my head right now. 1 to 2% polyunsaturated, the difference is mono.
Okay.
All right. And with something like olive oil and avocado oil, this is about 70% monounsaturated.
Okay.
So it's 15% or so saturated, about 15% or so polyunsaturated,
Okay.
mostly mono.
Yeah.
This is also mostly mono,
Right.
just a few percentage points less because it has more polyunsaturated fat.
Right.
And then this would have the least amount of monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats.
So I really only use these when I'm trying to make something in liquid form, like a salad dressing. And then otherwise, when I'm cooking or heating anything up, I would use these. And maybe, should we talk about the burn temperatures of them?
Yeah, I think that's important. You would know better than that because
Yeah.
you would know.
All right. Well, then in my experience, butter burns the quickest. And so, because it has the milk solids in it. And so if I want something to brown, or if I'm not going to heat it up very high, I would use butter. I also think it tastes the best. And so if there's a way that I can find a way to cook with butter, I'm going to do that. And then, ghee is similar in flavor, and they've removed the milk solids, and so it has a slightly higher burn temperature. If I'm going to straight up fry something, like my fried chicken recipe, which you should check out, I'm going to do that in beef tallow because this has the highest burn temperature. And then I actually really love coconut oil. And I would use it a lot more, except that it's very often makes all your dish taste like coconut. And so if I'm making something like a curry or something that the coconut would be a great complement in flavor, I would always use this coconut oil rather. And actually you have found a coconut oil that
you
doesn't
can get
have
steam distilled coconut oil that deodorizes it. So there's no flavor and no aroma of coconut. And I love it. It's basically in my house we're either using butter or that when we're cooking.
Okay.
Yeah. And then olive oil if we're making dressings or something like that.
Sure.
One more thing I want to say about saturated fats and why you want more of these in your diet. Not only are they more stable when they're being processed and made, and when you're cooking, they ultimately go into your cell membranes. Okay. And so you want stability in your cell membranes. You don't want them to be fragile or breaking down because the fats that are making them up are fragile.
That makes sense. And something else I wanted to mention about cooking with these fats. So you never want your fat to start smoking. And I doubt that any of you are going to get some sort of oil thermometer and be testing how hot your oil is. But if it ever starts to smoke, you've taken it too far. And, like we mentioned, these all have different smoke points. And so always err on the side of not burning your food or not burning the oil.
Not burning the oil.
Yeah.
And it, what's interesting about that is like, why would you do that anyway? You probably are rushing the process, right?
Totally.
So you got to slow down
Yeah.
when you're cooking, and that's okay to do that.
Yeah.
And just give yourself a little more time.
Yeah. So avocado oil has a much higher smoke temperature than olive oil. But either way, I generally avoid cooking with them because of their high concentration of PUFAs. And so I really only use these when I'm making either a salad dressing or a mayonnaise because I need that liquid consistency.
It's also worth noting that there have been some consumer reviews, like meta-analyses of olive oil brands adulterating their olive oil with other seed oils, and the same thing happening with avocado. And avocado probably is more adulterated on the whole than olive oil is. So the best thing to do is to find a small company, a small farm, a single estate olive oil, pay more for it because you're just going to use it in a dressing.
Yes.
You're not going to be cooking with it on the regular. And then that you're getting, so you get vitamin E from this, and that's a really good protective vitamin compound that you don't get from any of the other oils. So it's worth keeping it in your diet. And it's worth mentioning too that there's a lot of vitamin A in both in ghee and butter. That's going to be a high vitamin A source, just like eggs and just like liver. And there is some vitamin A, not as much in the tallow, but it's there.
Yeah. And we recommend that you get these fat-soluble vitamins through your food rather than trying to supplement them. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Jonathan. And thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next time at the Peace Offering Kitchen.